What is going on, YouTubeverse? John Stanek from Johnny Radio here, bringing you another Viva La Vinyl classic album review, and it does not get much more classic than this, folks. The 1977 masterpiece by Television, Marquee Moon. Gotta love this album, and I gotta start by saying I had not even heard this record until just maybe about 5 years ago when I was in a record store, actually, in Delaware, of all places, called Jupiter Records. And this was playing over the loudspeakers, and I kept thinking to myself as I'm looking through records, like, man, what is this? It sounds so cool, like something familiar and yet something I had never heard before. And I asked the guy, what is this? And he held it up as if I should know already. And I was like, okay, mental note, Television, Marquee Moon. Went and checked it out later on Spotify, and shortly after, it just has become one of my favorite albums of all time. I mean, just for the title track alone, the 10-minute opus of Marquee Moon, it is just such an incredible song. And it's in the vein of other 10+ minute songs like The End by The Doors, where it's so epic, where it kind of has pieces of the song where it builds and builds and then comes back down. But I love how the interplay between Tom Verlaine, the lead vocalist and guitarist, and Richard Lloyd, the lead guitarist, who also sometimes switches back and forth between lead and rhythm to allow Verlaine his own guitar solos. There's not that many other bands that you can think of that have such a cool interplay between the two lead guitarists, and Marquee Moon is a perfect example of that. And what a cool band. For a debut album in 1977, this is definitely one of the best debut records of all time. And unfortunately, their follow-up Adventure wasn't as good, and then they did kind of come back years later and do some other works, but nothing quite ever stood up to this. I mean, just from the opening chords of See No Evil, it's such a fun, upbeat song. I see no evil. And, Tom Verlaine's vocals, he's not, let's put it this way, he wouldn't make it on The Voice. But, in the same way of contemporaries like Patti Smith or their idols like Bob Dylan or even Jeff Mangum from Neutral Milk Hotel, it's not exactly how proficient his vocals are, but how much passion he has in them. And you can really feel that in songs later in the album, like Torn Curtain, my other favorite. Another, I think it goes on for about 7 minutes, and I wish it went longer because it's such an epic closer, one of the best album closers of all time. And again, the guitar playing, just like his vocals, Tom Verlaine is not as technically proficient as Richard Lloyd is. Like Lloyd, which one is which. On Marquee Moon, Lloyd is the one that essentially the chorus of the song is that riff that he does, that dun, 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 dun. So cool. But then at the end of the song, it's Verlaine who has that building guitar solo that has just so much emotion in it. It's not that he's not good at guitar, but you can tell that like Lloyd probably grew up getting guitar lessons and just mastering those scales, whereas Verlaine played more with his heart on his sleeve and just maybe even hitting some wrong notes sometimes, but getting the real passion, the meat out of the bone, you know what I mean? And so on Torn Curtain, that solo at the end of the song is just magical and so beautiful. I can hear it ringing in my ears now, the way he just keeps going down the neck as it goes on and on. Beautiful song. Those are obviously my two favorites, Marquee Moon and Torn Curtain. There's only 8 songs on the album, and you know what? I wish bands nowadays would kind of take cues from that. Like in the 70s, this was a normal thing, just 8 songs on a record. Of course, 2 of them were close to 10 minutes long, but you don't have to have a minimum of 11 or 12 songs on an album. You can have 8 and call it a record. That's cool. And this is like a perfect runtime of 45 minutes. No, there's no fat on here. Every song, Venus, which has really cool guitar interplay between the two of them. Friction, another one of my favorites. Such a fun song vocally and just almost like a bluesy song. The riffs on it are so cool. And I failed to mention that these guys are from New York City, came up in the CBGB's club in the mid-70s, and they actually had a record deal a whole year before they produced this record, and they actually did some demos with Brian Eno that amazingly did not work out for whatever reason. Tom Verlaine thought they didn't sound like they should. And just think about that, the balls you got to have to say, yeah, this Brian Eno guy didn't do us service. We're going to move on to somebody else. And then ended up getting creative control with Elektra Records and produced it himself with the help of the engineer Andy Johns, who of course worked with Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones. So it gave it a little bit of that rock heaviness, but also with obviously a very DIY indie rock, which that term didn't exist at the time. Punk rock would have been the term. But this album inspired so many alternative acts, so many indie acts down the road. And of course, some of their contemporaries, including Talking Heads from that same scene. Man, what a scene to come out of in the mid-70s. But again, they waited a good year before they had their material just honed and well crafted to the point where in the studio, most of the songs that were recorded live in studio. It blows my mind to think that Marquee Moon was actually a one-take wonder, and they were happy with it, and I'm so glad they were, because you really feel the magic of it, even in the little breakdowns where they're doing these little arpeggiated sounds that give it this atmospheric vibe. Just an amazing record that I still can't believe that I just heard of it 5 years ago, that this wasn't even on my radar. And it's on so many lists of like Rolling Stones top 500 albums and so forth. So if you have not heard this yet, please go check it out. It is, I give it a strong 9 out of 10. It's certainly in my top 100 albums of all time. And yeah, as I said, not a bad song on here. My two favorites, Marquee Moon and Torn Curtain. Two of the greatest songs of all time. Television, baby. And guys, we got more album reviews on this channel. If you like this, check them out. We got top fives every Friday. So much more. Thank you for watching. And as always, Viva La Vinyl. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and be sure to ring the bell for notifications so you can always see great quality content like you're seeing on the screen right now. Thank you so much for supporting Johnny Radio, and I'll see you soon.